Hey everybody. I'm really not sure why I'm plopping this thing down in front of my camera and turning it on to talk about it. Outside of the cultural significance, it was wishing that it had. Um, I every weekend I bust out. I go through all my books and try to find what am I gonna have for the coming week. And I'll try to find a variety of things, stuff that I know are going to draw eyes. And I've discovered if you do anything related to Jim Lee, man, the views just show up. Liefeld, McFarlane, kind of the same, but Jim Lee, man, his name and anything related to him just draws eyes. So I try to throw in some stuff that people be interested in, and they also try to throw in a couple of things that are a little more obscure, a little more random, so it's not just all Marvel Comics, Jim Lee X-Men, or Image Comics bullshit, even though that's the majority of what it is, because that's the interesting, fun stuff. But Marvel did, as most of us remember at the time, a 2099 line. And the only one that was worth a piss was the Spider-Man 2099. That had some interesting concepts that still have survived today, and one of the best Spider-Man costume designs you've ever seen in your life. There was Punisher 2099. I never read it. It never looked good. There was Doom 2099, and I remember that I read at least the first 2 or 3 issues, and I remember finding it interesting, though I can't tell you anything about it. My recollection is that there was some version of it was Doctor Doom, the regular version, but somehow he got sent to the future, and now he's a man out of time, and so he has to kind of like reclaim his heritage and his birthright and his powers. It's like Doom has returned, and he wasn't exactly a villain, I think. I'd be curious if you remember, if you read that, am I remembering it correctly? But there was this one, Ravage 2099, and what was the big selling point? Stan Lee written and created, I believe. So Stan Lee, I mean, his contribution to comics cannot be understated. Sometimes it gets overstated, and people tend to credit him solely for things which he did not create by himself. But his addition to the comics world of Marvel is absolutely more important than almost anybody in a way. Like if there's a Mount Rushmore of 4 people who are the most important people in comics, he's got to be up there with Kirby and Will Eisner, and I don't know, there could be any number of other guys. But anyway, Ravage 2099, written by Stan Lee. I got to be honest, this review is not going to take very long. I've probably already taken more time to discuss the build up to it than I've got anything to say about this book. I remember I collected issue 1 and I was done. I'm out. I hate to say it, but we have to be honest. As much as we love Stan Lee, his prime was long since done as far as creativity and writing. Just because he's Stan Lee, just because he puts words to paper, doesn't mean it's good. It used to be, it is not anymore. His strength was his personality, his charisma, his salesmanship. You just turn on an interview with Stan Lee, and he's so fucking charming, and he's so fun, and you just can't help but love him. Whatever the real man may have been like, whatever sins he may have done by not crediting people in the past, as I've heard. I don't know how it really works, what the actual truth is. But they bring this book out and printed in 92. So this is at the height of the Image Comics boys getting started with their imprints, the grim and gritty comic world getting going. And so they're like, hey, Stan Lee, let's get you to do a future title. We'll make an original character. The others were Spider-Man, Doctor Doom, and Punisher. But this is the original. This is an original creation created by Stan Lee and Paul Ryan. I'm not incredibly familiar with the artist. Certainly very competent. But for the abilities that they had to be able to create comics and look a certain way, it's like they went out of their way to make this look as shitty old school as possible. They hadn't gotten the balls to move into the future the way that the Image comic boys were doing, and it just made this thing look like an embarrassing fuck up. Why does this suck? Because it's so cliche, it's so boring, it's so old school. It doesn't stand up with any kind of relevance. And now, again, this is just my opinion. If you've read this and you loved it, tell me why. Tell me why you loved it. I can't tell you too much of the story because I read it the one time and I'm like, fuck this thing. There are way more interesting things I'm going to read. And I'm not going to spend my $1.75 on this boring ass shit. And it gets really stupid. So again, we're way in the future. There's futuristic shit going on. It's all kind of competently drawn. But is there anything interesting going on here? The answer is no. And so there's this guy. He's like a bigwig working for a company. His name's Paul Phillip. I mean, okay. And he's kind of a tough, grizzled looking guy. And I can't even tell you what's going on here, except he's part of a big company. He eventually gets betrayed and has to restart his life and becomes Ravage 2099. But why is it stupid? He's kind of a tough guy. He stands up for himself. They're demonstrating that he can fight and take care of himself. But this stuff is just all kind of so boring looking. I mean, we've been spending forever looking at McFarlane draw Spider-Man with vibrant colors and poses and action. And look at this. Go look at Liefeld drawing X-Force. Go look at Jim Lee drawing X-Men or Silvestri Wolverine. Or fuck, even Valentino on Guardians of the Galaxy is looking. This is just so boring. But if the story was good, but it's not to me. Scummy bad guy. You can tell he's bad because he's old and he got a gray hair ponytail. It's really stupid. Whatever's going on, there's just so much standing around talking and building up and talking, and there's mutant creatures with weird, dangerous powers that scare people. A big explosion happens, and the mutant guy shows up, and so they're talking to it, and then the cops show up. And I guess it's because our main focus guy here is seen talking to one of these mutant cretoid things. They shoot at him, and I guess he ducks, and it catches him on the side of his face, which is why I guess he has this wicked sweet scar on his face. That's how he gets his defining facial scars, because somebody at point blank range shoots at him and he misses, but it just catches him. Like, oh no, you're hurt, your face. He's like, don't worry, babe, I'm awesome. I'm going to throw a chair at him and jump up. And this is so like old school shit. This feels like, so, I mean, it's written by a guy who's out of touch and does not have any idea what modern comic audiences are interested in. I mean, this wouldn't even fly in the 60s, I don't think. It's just so bland and it's just boring. Whatever. He's betrayed. He has to fight his way out. He tries to save the girl. They jump out of the building and then things explode. They're hanging off the edge. He's just kind of realizing his entire life is, I don't know, everything's been a lie. Everything sucks. But his name is Paul Phillips. But here he's like, Paul Phillips, he's dead. Ain't no one here but Ravage. I mean, I don't know if the name, the Ravage thing has come up before, because I just couldn't bring myself to read this thing again. Ain't no one here but Ravage, and they're going to tremble when they hear that name. Really? I don't think we are. I really seriously doubt it. So then this is where it gets just so stupid. This guy who I get the point. He used to work for a big corporation. He was surrounded by wealth and power and money. He goes to a junkyard and straps fucking trash onto his body. And he's like, I'm a hero and I'm going to take back the world. He straps like an old Chevy hubcap to his arm, and he throws some chains around him and picks up some like gears from whatever and puts them on his jacket, and he gets a pipe. And all this dialogue, geez, I'm just reading this. I feel like I've died and I've been reborn in the fucking garbage heap. I've spent all my life following orders. I did my job and never made waves. I figured keep my nose clean and stay out of trouble. But that was then, and this is now. I used to think violence was the last resort of a savage. I still do. But when the world's the jungle, the savages take over. No more playing by their rules. Now we'll play by mine. This is laughable. This is laughably stupid. If this was like a parody comic, like a joke, the guy goes to a junkyard and straps on trash, and he's like dead serious going to take over the world and be a hero. I'd be more interested in that. This is played so deadly serious. It's so stupid. Gets even worse. He's like, he sees this truck over here. That garbage truck must have been here since the turn of the century. It's old and rusting, but look at the size of her, the power. She's solid steel, bigger and stronger than the plastic junk they made today. So this truck, it's been sitting around since the turn of the century. So in theory, up to possibly 100 years. Let me tell you what will not start up after a century is any gas combustion engine vehicle. Absolutely not. But this is a comic book, and this is written by Stan Lee. So he jumps in it. She's a derelict, like me. Oh my God, he's bonding. This is like if he's a cowboy, this is his horse, except it's a fucking garbage truck. Too big and ugly for anyone to want her. Hey, I feel attacked. But her tank's still full, and if I can hotwire this baby. So, look, it's a comic book. I'm over analyzing it. But if it's a combustion engine, one, gasoline doesn't sit for a century and still work in a combustion engine. That shit will turn to sludge in weeks, or months. Like, it will not run. The battery will not run. This is like somebody who's just using cliche shit. Oh, there's still gas in it, and I just rub a couple wires together, then it turns on and drives. The wheels are still inflated. I mean, maybe it's somebody's project, and if they would have just said, hey, the guys at the junkyard kept it running, and it's an old-timey vehicle, but they kept the gas in it, and they kept the battery charged, and they kept up the maintenance on it, so the century-old dump truck still works. Great, but it's like, no, it's been sitting here for a century, and it still works. We still got to read this shit. Oh, man, listen to that roar, like she's been waiting for me all these years. Yeah, I bet she has. Don't bother fiddling with the gate, Charlie. Me and this rust pot got no time to waste. All right, I got my wheels and I'm loaded for bear. Oh my God, that is stupid. They may have beaten Paul Phillip, but now they'll answer to Ravage. And then we cut to epilogue. Mountains, building, some creepy looking guys playing chess. And what is this, a Liefeld comic? For none may challenge Death Strike, spelled D-E-T-H-S-T-R-Y-K. Not until I have crushed the entire human race. And he looks like he's got the face of like an old 57 Chevy or something like that. But he's still got hair-ish type things. Anyway, embarrassing and laughably stupid. There's a little tiny black and white image of Doom 2099. As far as a cover goes, I remember thinking, that looks fucking awesome. There's Doom standing on a mountain, lightning striking. The power and regal energy of Doom is shown there. And then Spider-Man 2099. Pretty interesting. We'll be looking at that at some point. But anyway, that is the end of this book. Kind of just terrible. Just terrible. But if you've read this and you like it, tell me why. I mean, if you like the concept of an old school kind of classic, simple kind of superhero tale, which is how this kind of feels, but it doesn't work. Especially when you take a guy who just straps garbage onto himself and gets a dump truck. It's terrible. Love Stan Lee, love his legacy. It's a shame that this shit exists and it was put out there like, oh my God, Stan Lee wrote it, it's going to be good. And most of us were like, yeah, it was really good. Can I go read Wildcats now? Anyway, let me know what you thought about this book, please. I really would like to know. Like, more than anything, tell me what you think about this. Was there anything interesting about this to you? Because it sucks. Anyway, also, I should mention, if I remember correctly, they put this foil edging around it. You can kind of see it there. This is like a gold. I think they did a different color on all of them. I think Spider-Man's was red, was Doom's silver, and Punisher's. I don't remember what the other, but I just remember that was kind of an interesting thing to make these 2099 books stand out, was this foil edging around the cover like that, just to make them stand out, to look like they're part of a collective group of new books, but give it kind of a different vibe. Anyway, that's all I've got. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it as always. I will see you next time.